disease-burdened bark far out to sea. There they cast it off, and one of them calls out, "Grandfather Smallpox, go away, go willingly away, go visit another land. We have made you food ready for the voyage. We have now nothing more to give." When they have landed, all the people bathe together in the sea. In this ceremony, the reason for striking the people with the branches is clearly to rid them of the disease demons, which are then supposed to be transferred to the branches. Hence, the haste with which the branches are deposited on the proa and towed away to sea. So in the island districts of Ceram, when smallpox or other sickness is raging, the priest strikes all the houses with consecrated branches, which are then thrown into the river to be carried down to the sea, exactly as amongst the Wotyaks of Russia the sticks with which have been used for expelling the devils from the village are thrown into the river, that the current may sweep the baleful burden away. The plan of putting puppets in the boat to represent sick persons in order to lure the demons after them is not uncommon. For example, most of the pagan tribes on the coast of Borneo seek to drive away epidemic disease as follows. They carve one or more rough human images from the pith of the sago palm, and place them on a small raft or boat or full-rigged Malay ship, together with rice or other food. The boat is decked with blossoms of areca palm, and with ribbons made from its leaves, and thus adorned, the little craft is allowed to float out to sea with the ebb tide, bearing, as the people fondly think or hope, the sickness away with it. Often the vehicle which carries away the collected demons or ills of the whole community is an animal or scapegoat. In the central provinces of India, when cholera breaks out in the village, every one retires after sunset to his house. The priests then parade the streets, taking from the roof of each house a straw, which is burnt with an offering of rice, ghee, and turmeric, at some shrine to the east of the village. Chickens daubed with vermilion are driven away in the direction of the smoke, and are believed to carry the disease with them. If they fail, goats are tied, and last of all pigs. When cholera rages among the Bars, Malans, and Kurmis of India, they take a goat or a buffalo. In either case the animal must be a female, and as black as possible. Then, having tied some grain, cloves, and red lead in a yellow cloth on its back, they turn it out of the village. The animal is conducted beyond the boundary and not allowed to return. Sometimes the buffalo is marked with a red pigment and driven to the next village, where he carries the plague with him. Amongst the Dinkas, a pastoral people of the West Nile, each family possesses a sacred cow. When the country is threatened with war, famine, or any other public calamity, the chiefs of the village require a particular family to surrender their sacred cow to serve as a scapegoat. The animal is driven by the women to the brink of the river and across it to the other bank, there to wander in the wilderness and fall prey to ravening beasts. Then the women return in silence and without looking behind them. Were they to cast a backward glance, they imagine that the ceremony would have no effect. In 1857, when the Aymara Indians of Bolivia and Peru were suffering from a plague, they loaded a black llama with the clothes of the plague-stricken people, sprinkled brandy on the clothes, and then turned the animal loose on the mountains, hoping that it would carry the pest away with it. Occasionally the scapegoat was a man. For example, from time to time the gods used to warn the king of Uganda that his foes, the Banyoro, were working magic against him and his people to make them die of disease. To avert such a catastrophe, the king would send a scapegoat to the frontier of Bunyoro, the land of the enemy. The scapegoat consisted of either a man and a boy, or a woman and her child, chosen because of some mark or bodily defect, which the gods had noticed and by which the victims were to be recognized. With the human victims were sent a cow, a goat, a fowl, and a dog, and a strong guard escorted them to the land which the god had indicated. There the limbs of the victims were broken, and they were left to die a lingering death in the enemy's country, being too crippled to crawl back to Uganda. The disease or plague was thought to have been thus transferred to the victims and to have been conveyed back in their persons to the land from which it came. Some of the aboriginal tribes of China, as a protection against pestilence, select a man of great muscular strength to act the part of scapegoat. Having besmeared his face with paint, he performs many antics with the view of enticing all pestilential and noxious influences to attach themselves to him only. He is assisted by a priest. Finally, the scapegoat, hotly pursued by men and women beating gongs and tom-toms, is driven with great haste out of the town or village. In the Punjab, a cure for the murrain is to hire a man of the Chumar caste, turn his face away from the village, brand him with a red-hot sickle, and let him go out into the jungle, taking the murrain with him. He must not look back. Section 3. The periodic expulsion of evils in a material vehicle. The immediate expulsion of evils by means of a scapegoat or other material vehicle, like the immediate expulsion of them in invisible form, tends to become periodic, and for like reason. Thus, every year, generally in March, the people of Lvii, Moa, and Lakor, islands of the Indian archipelago, send away all their diseases to sea. They make a proa about 6 feet long, rig it with sails, oars, rudder, and other gear, and every family deposits in it some rice, fruit, a fowl, 2 eggs, insects that ravage the field, and so on. Then they let it drift away to sea, saying, "Take away from here all kinds of sickness. Take them to other islands, to other lands. Distribute them in places that lie eastward where the sun rises." The Biajas of Borneo annually send to sea a little bark laden with the sins and misfortunes of the people. The crew of any ship that falls in with the ill-omened bark at sea will suffer all the sorrows with which it is laden. A like custom is annually observed by the Dusans of the Taurain district in British North Borneo. The ceremony is the most important of the whole year. The aim is to bring good luck to the villages during the ensuing year, by solemnly expelling all the evil spirits that may have collected in or about the houses throughout the last 12 months. The task of routing out the demons and banishing them devolves chiefly on women. Dressed in their finest array, they go in procession through the village. One of them carries a small sucking pig in a basket on her back, and all of them bear wands with which they belabor the little pig at the appropriate moment. Its squeals help to attract the vagrant spirits. At every house the women dance and sing, clashing castanets or cymbals of brass and jingling bunches of little brass bells in both hands. When the performance has been repeated at every house in the village, the procession defiles down to the river, and all the evil spirits, which the performers have chased from the houses, follow them to the edge of the water. There a raft has been made, ready and moored to the bank. It contains offerings of food, cloth, cooking pots, and swords, and the deck is crowded with figures of men, women, animals, and birds, all made out of the leaves of the sago palm. The evil spirits now embark on the raft, and when they are all aboard, it is pushed off and allowed to float down with the current, carrying the demons with it. Should the raft run aground near the village, it is shoved off with all speed, lest the invisible passengers should seize the opportunity of landing and returning to the village. Finally, the sufferings of the little pig, whose squeals serve to decoy the demons from their lurking places, are terminated by death, for it is killed and its carcass thrown away. Every year, at the beginning of the dry season, the Nicobar Islanders carry the model of a ship through their villages. The devils are chased out of the huts and driven on board the little ship, which is then launched and suffered to sail away with the wind. The ceremony has been described by a catechist, who witnessed it at Car Nicobar in July 1897. For 3 days the people were busy preparing two very large floating cars, shaped